Now, talking about death and dying isn't always pleasant, and we really avoid it. But Hospice of Northwest Ohio is hosting an event soon that might change your mind about that. Sara Chambers is with us today so we can learn a bit more about what's called the Death Deck. Did that get your attention? Death Deck?
You got it.
It's actually, you got a deck of cards.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, working for hospice, you are a special person to go in that field. It's my exposure to it. It's gut wrenching to go through it with family and friends. But to see that on a daily basis, that must be really difficult. Kind of coming to grips with dealing with that and with families going through grief.
Sure, you would think it would be, people often will say, aren't you depressed? But it's actually kind of the opposite of that. When you see the mess of life sort of blow away from people because they are concentrating on what's human and most important to them, it can really reaffirm, your faith and what's important to you. So it's very rewarding work.
Talk about the Death Deck, what this is. So the whole point of it is to get the conversation going about death, because all of us are like, my father passed away a couple of months ago, and it was difficult to talk to him about that. And,
yes.
and I know other people have the same problem, is getting your parents to talk, or even a spouse for that matter, or even a child, God forbid, but talking about the things, what do you want to do, and it's going to happen, let's deal with this right now. That's so difficult.
I think one of the questions I get a lot is, how do I start that conversation? And the Death Deck as a game is a good example of that. I think once people start the conversation, they'll realize that a conversation about death is really a conversation about life. And it can be very life-affirming and very positive. So I've been using the Death Deck, which is a collection. Oh, I left it over there.
Hold on.
It's a collection of conversation prompts. The thing that I liked about this, I had attended a webinar with different games. The thing that I liked about this was that it had multiple choice questions. So when I'm in public, I don't have to ask the audience to just come up with an answer. They can pick A, B, or C. What happens is we start off with some easier questions.
Give me some questions here.
So one of the ones
that's for what ages? Mature?
I would say 18 and older,
Okay.
but some of these would be appropriate for kids. My daughter is one who talks about death a lot, having a hospice nurse for a mom. One of the questions, though, that gets a lot of traction, whether I'm talking to high school or college-age kids or at a senior center, is it appropriate to take photos at a funeral? A, sure, anyone who wants to capture a memory should do so. B, pictures are fine, but not of the deceased body, the casket. Or C, no, this is not the time for selfies. This specific question actually has drawn quite a bit of kind of a dichotomy between some people who are like, yeah, it's only time that families really get together, our weddings and funerals. Of course I want a memory of that. Other people are like, no, you don't do that at a funeral. And it starts a lot of conversation about other things. There's things in here about preferences about being over-medicated versus under-medicated, which is important for a nurse to know. There's questions about whether or not mediums can communicate with the dead, whether or not you believe in miracles. So what I found is, in the beginning, people are a little bit shy, but they'll answer the questions, and by the end, it's like everybody is best friends. We've gotten to know a lot about people that we didn't know before, and I think it transcends age and race and ethnicity and political affiliation, religion, because we all have this one thing, living and dying, in common. And people start to see that the conversation isn't as scary. And so Lisa Paul is coming November 7th to speak at the downtown library about her experiences. It's 2 hours, and it's a free continuing education event for nurses and social workers to get their hours. So we're really excited to have her. I've spoken with her a couple of times on video chat, and she's going to be an amazing speaker. She's going to talk about what went into creating this, and the co-creator of this is actually the spouse of a patient that she cared for. And they felt that if people would have the bravery to do something like this, or bring up a news story that maybe was local and say, what if that happened to you? What would you want? They realize that they can feel so much confidence and feel very positive at the end of that conversation.
It's so uncomfortable to talk about until you have a device like this.
Yes.
To get the conversation going, and it's so important.
Particularly in our country, we sort of cloak death and grief loss, in sadness and shame. Don't talk about it, it's morbid. But when you
Assisted
do,
suicide is an issue that's a real sensitive issue with a lot of
it's
people.
interesting that you brought that up because I'm getting questions about that from lay groups as well as professional groups. Now, it is illegal in both Ohio and Michigan at the moment, but those are topics that are starting to come up in the community as well. And once you start the conversation, you'll realize that you get to learn a lot about people. I've played this with people that I've known for a long time, thinking I knew them really well. And some of these questions will bring out some really good conversation starters and answers.
Sarah, you bring up so many good points. It's a topic that needs to be talked about more, and this event coming up
Yes.
next week is going to be important on that. Thank you so much for being here today.
Sure, thanks.